Welcome to another episode of The Consulting Curve, the community approach to clients and consulting. Brought to you each week by BizDrivers.biz, founded by Peter Selby, a trusted profit and growth advisory to companies and consultants around the world. Tune in each week and learn how you can take that journey from corporate to consulting. Welcome to another episode of The Consulting Curve, the community approach to clients and consulting. And our special host is Peter Selby. Peter, thanks for joining us again on The Consulting Curve.
Glad to be here, Kevin, as always. Looking forward to it.
I was making some notes before we jumped on the call today, and I was just kind of thinking in my mind, I have learned more about the whole genre of consulting in the last year just by literally sitting and hanging out with Peter for the last few months and asking good questions, just listening. And it truly has been a pleasure, Peter, to really hear the things that you do and really the way that you have interacted even with people in your own firm. I mean, it's been really, really interesting and encouraging to see the way that you guys interact with each other and on Zoom calls that I've been on. So I just wanted to start this show by telling you thank you for setting such a great example for the rest of us who try to lead teams.
Hey, look, it's a pleasure, and it's interesting because the reason for doing this series really is the learning curve that goes with being a good business advisor is a lot steeper than people get it credit for, and there's a lot of interconnected parts. So if we can do a bit to help people as we go through this, it's got to be a good outcome, I guess.
Well, it's been interesting to drill down so far, and the overall series that we're doing is called Advising in the New Economy, and it's been really good to kind of see the different facets and different kind of just like putting pieces of a puzzle together every couple of weeks. And the last few weeks, we started out in the first phase of the series, really talking about the sales conversion drivers. And now we're in the phase where it's really client value drivers. That's what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. And last week, we kind of looked at kind of data and how technology interfaced with consulting and advising. And this week is somewhat similar, but yet albeit different. The whole idea of using solutions and resources to bring to bear for the problem at hand. And Peter, why don't you just kind of open us up and just kind of lay the foundation for what we want to talk about today?
Sure. Look, like you said, we looked at the drivers of opportunity closeout and sales conversion. We've been looking now at the drivers of client value. And we will look at the drivers of having more customers to choose from, of course. But the client value is so critical because there's kind of elements to it. There is the element of being able to position and remove risk at the front end as you're trying to be engaged, through to applying some technology that's available nowadays that's really useful to help customers with insights. And today we're going to talk about the sort of last piece of that puzzle, which is around having a range of solutions and resources for those solutions that you can apply to an organization to widen the scope of the types of people that will do business with you and be seen as a safer pair of hands. Customers really have it, as time goes on and they are more and more connected to data around them, they expect more and more to see some sort of demonstrated process that they can follow when you are, playing around with their business, really. I mean, at the end of the day, when you go in and work with an organization and advise them, they're taking your advice to pull change levers in their organization. They really need something to follow to do that. And that's seen as a much safer pair of hands than somebody just advertising and trying to deliver outcomes based on their experience. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that people's experience aren't good enough, but a customer sees that as quite high risk unless they know that person intimately. So again, not having those processes narrows the scope of the range of companies that will do business with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of walked through the process. It's not necessarily a linear process, but yet in some form, you can almost view it that way. I mean, you've kind of gone through the entire discovery process and really asked good questions and found out what the need is, and the customer has agreed with you and identified that need. But at the end of the day, it's no good unless you provide answers, unless you provide solutions and bring resources to bear. So talk about that in really in the scope of, the fact that you said customers really want to see solutions.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of areas, I suppose. If you think about a process to follow, and it could be, like you say, a linear process, it could be a circular process, it could be a snapshot process. The process itself needs to bring a level of clarity to the problem that you are trying to solve. And assuming that you have uncovered with your potential customer the depth and scope of the problem, and of course you might not know all the details, but you'd at least know high level what you're trying to help with, then the solution itself must bring some level of clarity to that problem, and certainly give the customer a better understanding of the things that are aligning or not aligning, as the case may be, for the problem or opportunity that they see to manifest itself. So it's not just about following a process. The process has to be relevant to the situation at hand.
And I know that we talked about, bringing solutions to bear, bringing resources to bear. And it's interesting, you talked about, experience is important, but it's certainly not the end all to be all. And so when you're looking at these solutions, I mean, does the client care how you deliver the solutions, or do they truly want it? They want, I guess, to see the solution from end to end? That they want to see that it's kind of it's all encompassing in the services you provide, and you're not having to go out and kind of piecemeal things together?
It's a good question. They certainly want to see a demonstrated solution. So they want to see solutions that have worked elsewhere, or you can at least give case studies or show how it's going to affect them. That's one element. The other element, I guess, that's relevant with all this, as people are looking for deeper insights, customers are requiring more and more an end-to-end capability from either one solution or a suite of solutions that can be provided by one source. And whilst, a lot of medium and large size organizations don't necessarily want to deal with the perceived more expensive, very big consulting houses, even with the independent consulting companies, they don't want to have to deal with a range of companies to solve a range of business issues. So they are looking more and more towards a sort of end-to-end problem. And quite often, just uncovering the problem can mean that there's multiple things that there is an opportunity to improve, or a requirement to fix that might, more often than not, does require a wide range of skill sets to do that.
I remember when Brendan O'Keefe was our guest on episode 5, and he kind of laid out his interaction with kind of the biz driver community, and it really is, that's such a key word, community, the community approach to clients and consulting. And so the nice thing about it is, I think there was actually a smile that came to his face when he talked about the library or the inventory of resources he could bring to bear through the community, to grow a solution.
I mean, he utilizes the service that we offer to consultants to enable them to tap into both the solutions but also resources. But he's a good example of that, in as much that the capacity to have several consultants work on an opportunity again widens the scope of companies that will do business with you. One of the things that we see time and time again, if people are their own resource, there is a limit to the size, obviously the size of assignments they can take, because they are going to deliver it. Well, there's two things that limit it: either the size of the assignment or the speed they can go at. And also what we see then, if for people that are a singular resource, they live in this sort of feast and famine world where they've either got loads of work, in fact, normally too much, because, work comes in waves generally. Business works in waves, it's the chaos theory, I guess, but there's either a few opportunities or there's nothing. So people go from this feast and famine world where they got too much work and then they got no work. Whereas if you're delivering a wider project with a number of resources, they tend to mean much longer assignments as a result of the complexity, and therefore a much more consistent sort of revenue into the business.
I think there's one other thing that comes to mind when you talk about this, almost this feast or famine cycle, is I think back, earlier episodes when we talked about being the lone wolf, kind of the lone wolf mentality. I think there are certain opportunities that you just simply wouldn't qualify for because you're not bringing, as an individual, you're not bringing all those resources to bear. Where when you look at it from a community standpoint, from a, hey, do I have people that are in, have different areas of expertise that we can bring to bear on this problem as a group, as a family of resources, so to speak, or as an ecosystem of resources. And it's interesting that it would open you up to a lot broader and more, different, more diverse opportunities.
Well, that's a very good point, and on a couple of fronts there. One is that having a range of demonstrated solutions and the resources behind them means you are seen as a much safer pair of hands,
for sure,
from your potential client before the engagement even happens. But once it does, one of the other things that's happening, of course, in the market is solutions becoming much deeper because clients are looking for deeper insights. They need to move much faster than they did before, and deeper solutions require experts on the front line, as it were, not generalists. So, we come across a lot of people that have moved from a very successful corporate career into consulting, but they are generalists. They might have been the CEO of a big company or a C-suite role of some kind, and the real expertise of change is delegated, of course, down through the business, and that becomes an issue once you are consulting, because yes, you can steer the strategy with your customer if you're a generalist, but then delivering the absolute change that's needed in a technical field, which could be digital, which could be supply chain, which could be operations of some kind, or finance, requires an expert at that level. And if you are the sole resource, or you have a very limited resource, it's going to really limit the type of assignment you can hope to achieve with a customer.
I think that when I look at kind of our tagline for this series, the community approach to clients and consulting, I mean, every time we've talked, every opportunity, every episode that we've created, really fits within this. But I don't know that we've actually had an episode that really demonstrated that tangibly like this one has. That really has brought it to bear just for the common layman's, perspective out there like mine.
Yeah, look, there's a couple of elements to community. There's the community of people around you to help you uncover and secure and deliver work. And there's also a community of customers that's now required in the new age. And we'll talk about that in the remaining part of the series. But I mean, from a simplistic view, if you think about the community from a delivery perspective and a community from a sales perspective, complex solutions often require a community approach to fishing in the market in the first place to uncover the opportunity. It's often beyond one person to be able to do that. And equally, if it's that complex, or if it's a reasonable size assignment, it's more than definitely going to require more than one person to deliver it, or the skills of one person to deliver it. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment, if you are a lone consultant, you're stuck. You can obviously subcontract stuff. You can build relationships around you, but however you do it, you need to have access to those capabilities. And what we've tried to do over the years is make that easy for people by giving them a ready-made resource and tools to tap into. But there are other ways to do it, of course, but it's required nonetheless, especially if you're going to go beyond very small companies into the sort of medium scope, where at the end of the day, the more complex and therefore more lucrative assignments are.
I think there may be a third aspect that you actually mentioned earlier, and it's almost the and I'm really using this term community really loosely here. I know I'm taking poetic license, but I think just the community of deliverables, the community of, not only potential future deliverables, but historic. You said we can bring, kind of our track record to bear. We can show you, demonstrated outcomes, previously from the community as a whole, not just, from the individual consultant. So I think that's another
Well,
aspect of it.
that's very true. And the other thing that happens with a community, of course, is the depth of experience is magnified 1,000-fold, because 10 very experienced people are connected to thousands of companies and have dealt with hundreds of customers over the years, versus one person. I mean, it's the sort of exponential curve, isn't it? And 20 people are 200 times as much, and so forth. So definitely there is that community element to demonstrated service, as much as there is to good process and good experience.
This is such a crucial, episode that we've done in this series, and it's frankly, it's been one of my more favorite episodes of all of them we've done so far. And just to see the outcome of a very short period of time that we had a chat here. But one thing that I did want to ask you, you've almost talked me into quitting my day job, Peter. So you effectively, it's kind of like the classic undersell. You just, all you do is just share information, and you whet my appetite to learn more about this. So as we wrap up today, why don't you just kind of drill down really quickly and just say, you've mentioned it kind of in passing, what is available to consultants out there that may be curious, advisors that may really want to learn more about biz drivers and really the your place in the marketplace?
Well, sure. Before I get to that, I guess to close out what we've been talking about, the other element to consider is due to the fact that the consulting space is generally more competitive than it used to be. It's a lot more competitive than it used to be. There also needs to be a ability to deliver services into multiple industries. Being able to just deliver in one industry, because that's where you have a network, really won't keep you fed for very long. So that's another thing to think about from a community perspective, is a group of people will have multiple market experience, as well as multiple business and solution and functional experience. So that is another element that closes this out. And if you talk about, what we do with people, we work with small, medium, and large organizations around the world as a profit and growth advisory. But we also work with consultants to help consultants grow more resilient advisory practices. And we do that by giving them access to all the tools that we've built all the years, sharing our know-how and how to secure work, deliver work, but also give them access to a professional community of peers that are also, whilst they work as a group for the better good, they've also individual consultants with their own businesses, but together they are far more powerful and can touch far more customers. So the fusion of a community with demonstrated process and intellectual property and experience and coaching, those things sort of melded together are quite a powerful tool for people to tap into. But I'm not suggesting that that's the only way to do it. It's certainly a rapid way to do it, and it can often deliver multiple. We help people also deliver multiple revenue streams and do things they never thought of doing before. But the point I'm trying to make, regardless of how you do it, you really do need a community of service and offerings beyond the individual, just simply because there's so much competition out there. Customers expecting more and more and more, and they're looking for deeper and deeper insights. So it's very difficult just to be a singular coach or a singular advisor and really stand out from the crowd.
I know that we list biz drivers in the show notes, but where is the specific place that people need to go to learn more?
Sure. If the URL to go to is bizdrivers.biz. That's BIZ drivers.biz/EAB, which stands for Executive Advisory Board. People go there, they can find out as much as they like, or go to our homepage and you'll see an icon there that says Executive Advisory Board, and that talks all about this community approach and how it can really help people accelerate their journey into building a really resilient and profitable consulting practice.
Well, Peter, once again, we've just in a very short period of time here covered a lot of ground, and it has been a pleasure. And like I said, this has been one of my favorite episodes that we've done to date. But as we wrap up today, I just want to once again tell you thank you for taking time. I know your time is valuable, and it's just good to catch up and really share as we walk through this series. And as we're kind of wrapping up really the client value drivers, and the next week or 2 weeks from now, the episode that we're going to talk about is really an interesting episode. We're going to talk about some examples where things went wrong. So I am really looking forward to this episode. Then, and I'm going to get out of the way and shut my mic down and just let Peter share some stories with you. And so it'll be a really good one.
I might try and get a couple of people to come on and share their stories also. But the other thing to think about, when just to close this out, when you are sitting with a customer who has a complex problem or is looking for a complex solution or a business-wide solution, one of the other things that happens is you see the light come on in their eyes when at the end of the day, they need to trust you personally, and they need to trust that you can solve their problem without putting things at risk. And when your solution has the depth to give them the clarity they're looking for, you can almost see, it's hard to describe, you can almost see this sense of relief on their face. And you're no longer having to try and sell your services. They're really trying to, what's the next move? How do we get going? Their whole demeanor changes. And that's simply because they've think they have found a safe pair of hands to solve a problem that they likely have been wrestling with for some time, So it is an interesting thing to watch a customer go through, and without giving them that clarity, you never see that light go on, and it's always a struggle. You're trying to sell something rather than solve a problem in a form of collaboration.
And you never know, you may have helped somebody keep their job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In this economy, for sure. Well, Peter, once again, thank you again for joining us on the Consulting Curve, the community approach to clients in consulting. And just remember to tune in the next couple of weeks for our fun episode that we've got about how things can go pear-shaped. Peter, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
Pleasure as always, Kevin. Thank you.